Okay, I think we'll get started. Welcome everyone to the first meeting of 2026. Nice sunny day out there. Okay, now we're good. Okay, so we'll begin with the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement. The RASC Halifax Centre respectfully acknowledges that we live and observe on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. The RASC believes in and practices inclusivity and diversity. Halifax Centre welcomes all with an interest in astronomy without prejudice. So today's meeting, we've had the welcome and introductions. Go into the photo montage, followed by our keynote presentation by David Barron, and Judy Black is going to do the introduction. Then we'll have a social break and your final crack at the books from the library, which are up on the table. Then we'll have Food for the Soul by Paul Heath. I'll talk a bit about some upcoming outreach opportunities. Judy will give us an update from the board. And then we'll end off with what's up in the January sky. All right. So we don't have a lot of images. Maybe we can dim the lights a little bit. Okay, so the year ended with not a lot of great skies in December, but we got a few images to look at. So the first one up is some sunspots from the first part of December, taken by Jerry Black, playing with his new C-Star S30. And another shot of the Triangulum Galaxy from M33, again from Jerry, taken with the C-Star S30. And Jerry says he mangled it in Pixinsight, but it looks pretty good to me, so I don't think it was much of a mangle. Michael Bochat, some sunspots from the first part of December, and it's kind of neat because there's a line of the pretty large ones. And the waning crescent moon from December 12th, again from Michael Bochat, taken from his apartment window. Some nice sharp features there. Jeff Donaldson gave us this shot of the Crab Nebula, Messier 1. And you'll see that there seem to be some common targets in December. I don't know if there was a telepathic link between people, but a lot of us were looking at the same targets. And again from Jeff, Caroline's Rose Cluster, NGC 7789. And that's right here. It's an interesting open star cluster. It's one of the oldest open star clusters with lots of old red stars and a few younger stars, probably resulting from collisions, created by collisions between some of the older stars. And Tim Doucette gives us this really colorful shot of the Garnet Star. I don't think I have to point out which one's the Garnet Star, and its surroundings. So lots of nice emission nebula and some dark nebula, some pretty prominent dark nebula scattered around. I got this shot of the Horsehead Nebula, and I took the images quite some time ago, but I was playing around with some new scripts in Serial, and they gave a pretty nice nice image without a lot of work on my part. And the Rivers Freezing Overmoon, taken with my Dwarf 2, the start of December.
Recording in progress.
Jesus.
And that line of sunspots. and my shot of the of Caroline's Rose cluster. John McPhee took this image of the daytime waxing gibbous moon at the end of December. And Kathy Walker's shot of the Crab Nebula, M1. And last but not least, Kathy Walker's M34. Oh, and another one for Kathy, the Cone Nebula. So this is it's part of the, what's known as the Christmas tree cluster, and this is kind of the top of the Christmas tree. So NGC 2264. And I think, yeah, that's it for the images captured in December. Hopefully January gives us better skies. We'll have more images for the February meeting. Yeah.
There just seems to be a leap in the quality and detail maybe of a lot of astroimaging. I'm just wondering, is it equipment, is it software, or is it people plotting the learning curve?
I think it's probably a little bit of all of those. All right. The software is getting more and more powerful and mature. PixInsight is really great images, but some of the free software is really pretty impressive now. And equipment, cameras, better resolution, and people learning to use the equipment better. Okay, so now we'll have our special presentation, our feature by David Barron, the Martians, and Judy Black's going to come up to introduce David.
Thanks, David. Thank you. One thing I'd like to note before I introduce David is that in our books, there are 3 books there on Mars. So if you're interested in Mars after this presentation, have a boo at the break at the book sale. It's not often that we get people come from away, if you will, to come and enjoy us, and we get to enjoy their presentations. It's because of David Turner that we actually have today's guest speaker, David Barron. David is well known. He's a well-known author. He's and journalist. He's actually been published in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and several other news items, whatnot. He's also an author. He's written several books, but today he's going to be addressing the one, The Martians. It's my copy. My lovely husband gave it to me for Christmas, so I'm enjoying it. I'm almost finished it. And this particular book was cited twice, once by Science News as the top read of 2025, and Time magazine said it's the must-read book of 2025. So if you can get your hands on a copy, do so. Because one of the things it's done for me is it's humanized the people that we read about in history. We know that somebody did something on a certain date, but we don't know what that person's personal life and mental health and everything else that goes with it was at that particular point in history, and this book does it really well. Serious fact, there's also some humor, and without any more, I'm going to pass it over to David. So welcome, David.
Thank you, Judy. I want to make sure you can hear me in the room and on the web. So please,
yes, we can.
Great. And now let me see if I can share my screen. I'm hearing some feedback. Oh, I think that's better. All right, let me see if I can share my screen properly. So thanks to you all for having me. Thanks to Judy Black, to Tony McGrath, and David Turner for arranging to have me speak. But before I get to my new book, The Martians, let me just take a short detour and offer a bit of background on me and how I came to write this book. So I'm a longtime science journalist. As Judy Black mentioned, I used to work as a science correspondent for NPR here in the US. I'm also a passionate eclipse chaser. I've witnessed 9 total solar eclipses now. I'll see my 10th in Greenland this August, and I'm happy to talk about eclipses when we get to the question and answer if you'd like. But because of my interest in eclipses, I came out with a book 9 years ago called American Eclipse. And it was published in 2017 to coincide with the total eclipse that would cross the United States from coast to coast that summer, the first to do so in 99 years. And the book tells the true story of a total eclipse that crossed America's Wild West back in 1878. On July 29th of that year, a brief period of afternoon darkness fell upon the American frontier along a path from Montana Territory to Texas. And this was a time when America's reputation in science was not very strong. Europeans looked down their noses at the US. But total eclipses were crucially important for astronomical studies of the sun and solar system. So the United States embraced the eclipse of 1878 as a chance to show the world what it could do in science. It was a formative event in America's evolution as a scientific and intellectual power. Back in 1878, dozens of the era's great investigators raced out to Colorado and Wyoming for the eclipse. My book tells the story of their journeys, their conflicts, what they set out to achieve. A lot of the scientists were notable individuals in that era, and one remains famous today, and that's this young gentleman holding his hat. That is Thomas Edison, age 31, who traveled to Wyoming for the eclipse right before he invented the incandescent light and right after he invented the phonograph. The eclipse offered Edison a chance to prove himself not just an inventor, but a scientist, someone capable of making important discoveries about the natural world. Another character, my favorite, in fact, was an astronomer from Vassar College in New York. Her name was Maria Mitchell. She was by far the most famous female scientist in America in the 19th century. And this was a time, of course, when there were very few female scientists. And Mitchell took the opportunity of the eclipse to open America's eyes to the good work women were capable of in science. So she assembled an all-female expedition to Denver for the eclipse of 1878, which was a public sensation. Anyway, I mention all of this because I had so much fun writing about astronomy in the 19th century, digging up long-forgotten adventures and fascinating characters, that after I wrote American Eclipse, I thought I might see if I could find another compelling astronomical tale from America's past, and that is the story that I will tell you today. This will be less a lecture and more of a story about science, about history, and about the future. I'll talk for around a half hour, and I'm happy to take questions afterwards. And forgive me if some of what I say is rudimentary to astronomical experts and amateurs like yourselves. But to begin with, so why did I choose this seemingly whimsical topic for my next book? Well, I was born in the 1960s, and as a kid, it often seemed that I was surrounded by Martians. On Saturday morning Bugs Bunny cartoons, I watched Marvin the Martian, a diminutive alien in a big Roman helmet who was intent on destroying the Earth. There was a popular sitcom called My Favorite Martian back then. It featured a wayward alien from the Red Planet who crash-landed his flying saucer in California. And there were old movies in which Earthlings went to Mars to meet the Martians. The intrepid space travelers included Abbott and Costello, Flash Gordon, even Santa Claus. Well, I grew up. I became a writer focusing on science and space, the reality of it, not the fiction. And the United States grew up. We now send rovers to Mars and are planning to send astronauts to discover the facts of what's there. But the older I got, the more I wondered about our collective fascination with Mars. I mean, the night sky is filled with planets and stars and galaxies. And yet Mars, more than any other celestial object, holds a particularly strong hold on our psyches. Why? Where did that Mars obsession come from? Well, I launched what became a 7-year journey through history. I dug into archives, I explored the scientific literature, and I read thousands upon thousands of newspapers as I immersed myself in an era more than a half century before I was born. And what I discovered, well, it astounded me. You see, before Martians became stock characters in fiction, they were widely believed to be scientific fact. The New York Times, December 9th, 1906. There is life on the planet Mars. And not just life, intelligent life, a civilization, said the paper of record. And so said all the papers. And what were these supposed Martians like? Well, No one knew for sure, but astronomers, zoologists, and other scientists came up with theories. And there were all sorts of fanciful ideas. But there was also some consensus. Since Mars is farther from the sun than the Earth is, and daylight is dimmer, it was thought that the Martians must have big eyes to take in as much light as possible. They had massive chests and large lungs, an adaptation to the thin air on Mars. The Martians were bigger than us, able to grow tall due to the planet's lower force of gravity. But what really surprised me was not so much the speculation about Martian anatomy, but about Martian manners. You see, the fictional Martians we best remember from that era are dastardly ones, those dreamed up by H.G. Wells in his classic 1898 novel, The War of the Worlds. His Martians were vicious invaders that roamed the Earth in monstrous tripods to hunt down humans as prey. His aliens were hideous and cruel. But that's not what people thought the real Martians were like. On the contrary, they were peaceful, social beings. They lived in cities and cared for one another. They were thought to be highly moral, almost angelic. Indeed, they were often depicted with wings like these Martians, or these along the bottom of that illustration. Those are Martians supposedly keeping a close eye on Earth through their high-tech telescopes. And it wouldn't be much of a stretch to say the Martians were seen, in essence, as guardian angels watching over us. Now, granted, today, this all sounds ridiculous, but it was taken seriously. No less of a celebrated thinker than Alexander Graham Bell, inventor of the telephone, one of America's elder statesmen of science, was convinced. There is no escape from the conviction, he wrote, that Mars is inhabited by a highly civilized and intelligent race of beings. So what is going on here? How did this mass delusion take hold? Well, I'll get to that in a moment, but first I should say a word about Earth and Mars and their orbits. Now, of course, you all probably know this, but the two planets circle the sun as if in adjacent lanes of a racetrack, although they move at different speeds, Earth much faster than Mars. And this means that even though the orbits sit right next to each other, the planets are often very far apart. They come close only once every 26 months when Earth pulls up beside Mars before racing past. And this moment of alignment is called an opposition because it's then that Mars sits opposite the sun in our sky. It's also the best time to study Mars because that's when the planet is especially close and big and bright. And if you look at it through a good enough telescope under suitable conditions, you can actually see details of the Martian surface. And it was at just such a time of astronomical opposition that our story begins, not in the United States, but in Italy. The astronomer Giovanni Schiaparelli headed the Brera Observatory in Milan. And in late summer of 1877, he undertook a dedicated study of Mars. Night after night, he sketched the planet's surface to create a map. Now, you might think that this would be pretty straightforward, but it's actually extremely difficult because when you look at Mars through an Earthbound telescope, even through a big and powerful one, you have to contend with the Earth's atmosphere. The atmosphere causes distortion. Mars wiggles and shakes. It goes in and out of focus. So to map Mars, you have to stare at the planet for long stretches, waiting for the occasional moment of clarity and stillness. And when you catch a glimpse of some portion of the planet's surface, you make a sketch of what you saw, and then you wait and wait until another part of the planet comes into view. It's a painstaking process that involves a lot of interpretation and potential error. Well, this is the process that Schiaparelli followed, and he eventually produced a global map of Mars. His map depicted dark areas that looked a lot like oceans surrounding light areas that he assumed were continents and islands. And there weren't just supposed oceans, there were what looked like fingers of water, and he called these features canali. Now, canali in Italian means channels, like the English Channel, a natural waterway connecting two bigger bodies of water. But the word was quickly mistranslated as canals. Now, that wasn't Schiaparelli's intended meaning, but the lines did look remarkably straight, almost artificial. And scientists wondered, well, what are these strange lines on Mars? They pondered this mystery for a decade and a half when a new character came on the scene, and his name was Percival Lowell. Now, Lowell was an aristocratic Bostonian. He was smart, educated, and rich. His family had made its fortune in textiles and founded the factory city of Lowell, Massachusetts. So when Percival graduated from Harvard in 1876, he could have done anything he wanted with his life. And what he wanted to do first was to travel. He spent much of his 20s and 30s in the Far East, in Korea and Japan, and he became kind of a roving anthropologist, studying Asian cultures and writing about what he learned in magazines and in books. But he was intellectually restless, and in 1894, as he approached the age of 40, he shifted the focus of his money and energy to a place even more exotic than Asia, and that was Mars. With some Harvard astronomers, he hatched a plan. He would use his personal fortune to establish a new observatory dedicated to the study of Mars, and he would situate it someplace with clear skies and a steady atmosphere. He settled on northern Arizona in Flagstaff, on this elevation which Lowell dubbed Mars Hill. He built his observatory there, he installed a state-of-the-art telescope, and he began studying the planet the way Schiaparelli did. Lowell spent his nights staring at the planet, waiting for moments of clarity that enabled him to slowly create his own map of Mars. And when he published it, it was a sensation. Lowell saw Schiaparelli's canals. In fact, he saw twice as many as Schiaparelli did, all unnaturally straight. And he noticed additional things. If you look at the big dark areas that had been assumed to be oceans, well, the lines were there too. The so-called canals, whatever they were, presumably couldn't cross water, so those dark areas must not be oceans after all. Lowell noticed that where the canals intersected, there were often these mysterious dark circles. What were they? What's more, the lines and circles weren't always visible. They came and went with the seasons. So what was going on? Well, Lowell came up with a theory. Those eerily straight lines, he suggested, were, in fact, canals. Not shipping canals, but irrigation canals. You see, Mars, he said, was a dying planet, running out of water. And what remained of its moisture was locked up in the polar ice caps. Now, in order to survive, the Martians had to tap the polar meltwater each spring and distribute it through an elaborate system of pumps and pipes and conduits to grow their crops in the temperate zones of the planet. The lines that Lowell observed in the telescope, he said, weren't the canals themselves, which would be much too narrow to see from so far away. Rather, the lines revealed the vegetation that greened up along the banks of the waterways each spring and summer, and then faded in the fall and winter. And that explained why the so-called canals on Mars came and went with the seasons. And as for the dark circles where the canals intersected, well, those were the Martian cities. Lowell called them oases. Now, the hypothesis was admittedly sensational, but it fit with other theories that were embraced at the time, having to do with the evolution of planets and of life itself. As for planets, which originally formed in swirling masses of gas and dust, it was widely believed that in a solar system like our own, the smaller worlds must be older than the larger worlds because they would naturally cool and solidify first. So Mars, which is only about half the diameter of Earth, must be older than the Earth. Now on Earth, life and the human lineage had slowly evolved toward intelligence, toward civilization. Well, let's assume that Mars had progressed along a similar trajectory and that life there had reached the Earth stage at some time in its past and then kept going. Well, the Martians, further down this road of evolution, are presumably more civilized than Earthlings and also more harmonious. After all, to manage an irrigation network that spanned the entire globe meant that everyone everywhere had to work as one. This planet that had been named for the god of war had ironically evolved into a planet of peace. Now, this was all just a theory, and Lowell was not a professional astronomer, but he was articulate and persuasive. He laid out his ideas in lectures and articles and a book, and while his Mars theory was far from proven, it wasn't dismissed either. It was at least a coherent hypothesis. It offered an explanation for the strange lines seen on Mars. Well, then, another important character entered this drama, the inventor Nikola Tesla. In 1899, Tesla traveled to Colorado, where I live. He set up a laboratory in Colorado Springs, and his goal was to study how electricity was transmitted through the earth and atmosphere. He created artificial lightning and listened for radio waves. Now, this was before radio was a practical technology, but natural things like lightning created electrical impulses that he could hear on his radio receiver. Well, one night, alone in his laboratory, he heard a strange signal that repeated in triplets. It was a very quiet click, 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 over and over again. And he thought about it for a long time, but couldn't come up with any natural cause. So eventually, he convinced himself that what he heard must have been Lowell's Martians sending a signal, shouting hello to the Earth. Tesla announced this to the world, and America went Mars crazy. Martians invaded popular culture. They showed up in music. This is a march called A Signal from Mars, published in 1901. They showed up in advertisements. They appeared in theater. The comedy A Message from Mars featured a Martian who comes to Earth to reform the world's most selfish man. A Martian showed up in the comics. Mr. Skygak was a roving correspondent from Mars who observed the strange customs of Earthlings and sent reports back home. And here he is, befuddled by the behavior of two young lovebirds. Now, it was a befuddling and noteworthy time for humans, too. This was an era of rapid change in America, the latter days of the Gilded Age. Wealth had grown concentrated, controlled by a small number of the exceptionally rich, while great masses struggled just to get by. Millions of immigrants streamed into the country, shifting American demographics and heightening tensions between cultures. Skyscrapers were reaching new and astonishing heights. Technology was exciting and unsettling, accelerating the pace of life. Anything seemed possible. If humans could fly on fixed wings, was it really so crazy to think that there are intelligent beings on Mars? And if the Martians are there, why couldn't we communicate with them? Well, after Tesla said he received a radio signal from Mars, scientists proposed schemes to answer back. Harvard astronomers suggested building an enormous array of mirrors to flash Morse code by reflected sunlight. Well, there were many notable people who got caught up in the frenzy, and my book has an almost operatic cast of characters: Percival Lowell and Giovanni Schiaparelli, H.G. Wells and Nikola Tesla, also other writers and scientists. I don't have time to tell you about all of them, but let me introduce you to a couple more. David Todd was a professor of astronomy at Amherst College in Massachusetts. He traveled the world on elaborate astronomical expeditions, often to observe solar eclipses. His wife, Mabel Loomis Todd, was a well-known writer and editor. She was a friend of Emily Dickinson's and famously brought the reclusive poet's work to world attention. David and Mabel were energetic extroverts. They were constantly busy heading out on adventures across the globe. They hobnobbed with the wealthy, including Percival Lowell, whom they counted as a friend. Well, David and Mabel got caught up in the Mars mania when in 1907, Percival Lowell funded an expedition to South America. You see, Mars that summer was going to make its closest approach to Earth in a decade and a half. So it was a prime opportunity to study the planet's surface features, to prove to Lowell's skeptics that the canals were really there, that the strange lines looked the way he drew them. But the planet wouldn't be seen so well from the Earth's northern hemisphere, so Percival Lowell paid David Todd to head south on what would be a Herculean undertaking. David Todd was responsible for the enormous telescope at Amherst College. It was a 7-ton monster. Well, at Lowell's direction and expense, David Todd disassembled the telescope, packed the pieces into 119 boxes that were loaded into crates and hoisted onto a steamship. The ship carried the telescope and the Todds to Panama, where the canal was still under construction, so they and the giant telescope crossed the isthmus by train, then boarded another ship down the west coast of Central and South America, where the Todds debarked with their equipment at the port of Iquique in northern Chile. They then got on another train up into the Atacama Desert, one of the driest, most desolate landscapes on Earth. Now, the Atacama at that time was a center of nitrate mining, and the Todds made their destination a remote mining settlement called Alianza. They were generously provided housing in the residence of the mine managers, and then beside the home, on the tennis court, they unpacked the boxes of telescope parts, had them reassembled, and prepared to make their observations of Mars. Now, the point of the expedition was not just to observe Mars, but to photograph it, an exceedingly difficult task in that era. But Lowell, in an attempt to prove that the lines he saw on Mars were real, had his team design a special contraption for just this purpose. Since Mars through a telescope is jittery, constantly bouncing around and therefore hard to capture in a clear picture, Lowell's device was sort of like a movie camera. It took a rapid series of still images, one after another, with the idea that once in a while you'd get a clear shot when Mars happened to sit still. Well, over a month and a half in Chile, David Todd took more than 10,000 pictures of Mars. Now, these were tiny, grainy images, just a quarter-inch in diameter. But when he and Lowell sorted through the photographs, they found some that were clear, and they said that the pictures offered incontrovertible evidence that the canals, these thin spiderweb-like lines, were really there as Lowell drew them. Again, the press went wild, declaring now that Lowell's theory of a Martian civilization was all but proven. David Todd announced a new plan to communicate with Mars. He would ascend in a high-altitude balloon with radio equipment. Meanwhile, Mabel, his wife, went out on a lecture tour, sharing the news from Mars with audiences that got swept up in the excitement. Now, how, I wondered, could the whole country have been duped? I mean, the supposed proof of life on Mars came down to tiny photographs that supposedly showed lines on the planet, but honestly were hard to decipher. And anyway, do lines on Mars necessarily mean an intelligent civilization? Why did this mass delusion take hold? Well, clearly part of the reason was Lowell's power of persuasion. He was an intelligent, educated, aristocratic man who could get published in respected newspapers and magazines. But a bigger factor I found was the receptiveness of the public to believe what Lowell was saying. And this says much more about us, about humans, than about the Martians. Life on Earth felt unstable. The United States and Europe had been through a period of labor unrest and anarchistic violence, including assassinations of heads of state. In fact, it wouldn't be long before another assassination, that of Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand, would trigger World War I, drenching Europe in blood and misery. As you can imagine, people wanted to believe that it was possible to create a more peaceful world, and the Martians were role models. In fact, when World War I broke out, The Washington Herald imagined what those peaceful aliens must think, watching the Earth in horror as the smoke rises over Europe and humans destroy each other over petty differences. But there were yet more reasons why people were so keen to believe in the Martians. Traditional ideas of Christian religion were crumbling. Darwin revealed that we were not made in the image of God, but in the image of apes. Geologists had by now discovered the enormous depths of time. The Earth had been around for at least millions of years, scientists said, and of course, we now know it's billions of years. Meanwhile, astronomers revealed the seemingly infinite depths of space. The universe was so much bigger than earlier generations had believed, and the Earth was certainly not at the center. We were tiny, insignificant. And with science explaining so many things that had once been relegated to religion, it wasn't clear where God fit in this new picture of the universe. Therefore, people hoped that the wise Martians might help us navigate this new reality. In fact, when David Todd announced plans to communicate with the Martians, a widely printed newspaper article pondered what questions Mars might answer. Now, you might think people would want to ask practical questions, how to build a reliable airplane, or more obviously, how to dig canals. But here are the queries people had for Mars. Where do our spirits go when we die? Is there any way to curb human selfishness? What is life? What are we living for? What is expected from us in life? What is the right way to live? It's as if the Martians had become stand-ins for God. Well, in the course of my research, I didn't just dig into old newspapers and manuscripts. I revisited many of the places that figure in the story. I went to Flagstaff, to Mars Hill, where Lowell's observatory still exists, and I used Lowell's very telescope to observe Mars and see if I might spot the canals just as Lowell did more than a century ago. I went to Milan to see the telescope that Giovanni Schiaparelli used to discover the canals in 1877. And in 2019, shortly before the COVID pandemic shut down the world, I went on a pilgrimage to see if I might track down Alianza, that remote mining camp in northern Chile. Now, unlike David and Mabel Todd, I didn't have to go the long way by ship. I flew down to the Andes and over to the Atacama Desert in northern Chile, landed in Iquique, which is now a modern city, rented a car, and drove up into the Atacama Desert, which is an utterly desolate landscape that looks remarkably like Mars. After an hour's drive south along the Pan American Highway, in the midst of a dusty bit of nowhere, I came across a sign for Alianza and turned off the asphalt. Now, the old mining camp was no longer standing. All the metal and machinery had long ago been hauled away for scrap, but the earthworks from the old nitrate processing plants were still evident. The barracks that housed workers back then had all crumbled. The old mine manager's residence where David and Mabel stayed was long gone, but I found the staircase, and a short distance away, I found the wall around the tennis court where David and Mabel Todd had set up their telescope and took the pictures that convinced the world that Percival Lowell was right, that the Martian canals were real. It was all quite thrilling to be able to touch history like that, to experience the same landscape that David and Mabel visited almost 120 years ago. And looking off into the distance in this exceedingly dry desert, I saw shimmering water. Now, it was a mirage, of course, and this was a potent symbol for the Mars craze as a whole, which began to vanish in 1909. It became clear that the Martians, well, they never were real. The story of the canals became a cautionary tale about the power of wishful thinking. It was a lesson in the untrustworthiness of the human eye and human mind. We can easily convince ourselves that false things are true because we so wish they were true. Now, that doesn't mean that the story of the Martian canals is all negative. On the contrary, Lowell's Martians spurred the human imagination in some very constructive ways. The stories about Mars helped launch science fiction. Beginning in the 19-teens, Edgar Rice Burroughs, famous as author of the Tarzan books, wrote a series of best-selling stories set on a Mars that the Martians themselves called Barsoom. The main character was an American adventurer named John Carter who swashbuckled his way through warring tribes to rescue the Princess of Helium. Now, it wasn't great literature, but it was just the stuff to stoke the imagination of young kids, like this fellow, who at age 10 was infatuated by the adventure novels, and who would later say that it was those novels that inspired him to grow into this scientist who worked on the team that for the first time safely landed a spacecraft on Mars. And that's Carl Sagan, of course, not on Mars, but in Death Valley with a model of the Viking lander. Similar stories can be told of other space pioneers. Robert H. Goddard, the scientist who built the first liquid-fueled rocket, got into the business because he read Mars fiction as a kid and wondered, was it actually possible to go to Mars? And how would we get there? In fact, if you ask many of the scientists involved in space exploration, they'll say they were inspired by the fiction they read when they were young, and that fiction can often be traced back to the Mars craze of 100 years ago. Which brings us to today, a time that holds eerie similarities to that long-gone era. Once again, we're living in a time when there's a vast chasm between the rich and the poor. It's a time of violence and unrest on Earth. The latest technology again brings great hope and great fear. And once again, some Earthlings are looking elsewhere for a more peaceful, more egalitarian, more technologically utopian world. The Mars Society was founded almost 30 years ago and is trying to jumpstart a better human future on Mars. And these folks are serious. They recently held a design competition seeking architectural plans for the first Martian city of 1 million souls. Almost 200 entries were submitted from across the world. Meanwhile, a conspicuous tech billionaire has made no secret that he aims to colonize Mars. Elon Musk hopes to start sending his Starship rockets to Mars soon, uncrewed at first, but with the idea of sending humans to Mars perhaps as early as 2029. Eventually, he hopes to send 1,000 rockets to Mars every couple of years, whenever Mars comes around close to Earth. And his goal is to build a new civilization to enable anyone who wants to move to Mars. Well, it's all a dazzling dream, but is it an inspiring vision or a delusion? Are we once again projecting onto Mars what we hope is there rather than what is there? Well, honestly, we probably won't know how this plays out for another 100 years when some writer in the future assesses us with the distance of history to determine if we too had been caught up in our own Mars craze. And with that, I'm happy to take questions, to talk about Mars, to talk about eclipses, whatever you'd like to discuss.
Any questions? Comments?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So that was an impressive refractor that Lowell had with him. Obviously, cameras have improved in quality, but what would that telescope perform like relative to today's telescopes?
Oh, it was an excellent 24-inch refractor. It's a great telescope, and it's situated in a pretty good place. You know, he chose Flagstaff because he thought the seeing was especially good there, but it's not quite as good as he thought. But no, it's a terrific telescope. But it was, you know, the one at Lick was 36 inches. That was already on the scene then. The Yerkes Observatory, then Mount Wilson. But it wasn't a fault of the telescope. It was a fault of Lowell's eyes and mind.
So did you see any canals then?
Unfortunately, so I went there in the summer of 2018 when there was an especially close opposition of Mars. but for anyone who looked at Mars then, you may remember there was a global dust storm that summer, and so I couldn't see anything on the surface of Mars. Bad timing.
Any other comment? Greg?
I just have a question. You mentioned about eclipses in Greenland, and is there anything unique about seeing an eclipse in Greenland? Because I think it's about 1:20.
Right. Yeah. So the path of totality this summer, so the eclipse is on August 12th, and the path of totality goes over Greenland, Iceland, and down to Spain. I'm going to Greenland because I was invited to be a speaker on a cruise going there. And I've always wanted to go to Greenland. And actually, Greenland's not a bad place to see it. You know, the waters around Greenland are notoriously cloudy, but the plan is to get up into a fjord where the clear air from the ice cap hopefully will come down over the water. But Spain is definitely the easiest place to go for that eclipse and probably has the best odds of clear skies. But I mean, basically, I'll go to any eclipse anywhere if I can afford it. I'm only going to be alive so many more years. There are not that many more total eclipses I can see, so I'm going to go see as many as I can.
Thank you.
Any questions from Zoomland?
I might also mention that one of the most surprising outcomes of my writing the book American Eclipse is I was approached a year or two after it came out by some theater producers who thought that there was a musical to be written about the eclipse of 1878. I thought it was a ridiculous idea, but I said, sure, why not give it a go? Well, actually, the musical American Eclipse has now been written, and it's a wonderful, wonderful show. The producers hope to get it to Broadway in a couple of years. It has not yet had its public debut. It's been in. It takes forever to create a new musical, and it's gone through these workshop performances in New York. But I'm hoping that sometime next year it'll see its world premiere, probably at a regional theater here in the U.S. And the hope is that it'll be on Broadway by 2028. So if you're planning any trips to New York in 2028, keep an eye out for the musical.
Provided it doesn't conflict with the 2028 total eclipse in Australia.
Well, actually, so my great hope is because the 2028 eclipse in Australia, the path of totality goes right over Sydney. In fact, the Sydney Opera House is right near the center line. So I'm hoping that we can have a production of American Eclipse, the musical, at the Sydney Opera House to coincide with the total eclipse of 2028.
Good luck on that one, David.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. Have you got a focus for your next book?
I do not. It took me so much longer to write this book than I expected. I didn't think it would take me 7 years, but it was a lot of research to do, going into archives and so forth. So I need a break. But I am looking, it would make sense having written a book about American astronomy in the 1870s and then one about American astronomy in the 1890s and the first decade of the 20th century to maybe do a story about American astronomy in the 20s or 30s. So I'm pondering some ideas.
Wonderful. Well,
We have a comment from Mary Lou. So those Martians with really big heads must have been imagined by men who never thought for who and how would have to birth them.
Right, that's a very good point. I presume that the baby Martians would have had somewhat smaller heads, but yes. But it's interesting, I showed some of those depictions of Martians, and they share a lot of traits with the stereotypical view of aliens today, right? I mean, the stereotypical alien is kind of tall and skinny with a giant bald head and huge almond-shaped eyes. So where did that come from? Well, some people say that's what they saw when they were abducted by aliens, or there was the supposed alien autopsy back in the 70s or whenever that was. But no, I think it all comes from our cultural memory of the Martians. Why do aliens today have those big eyes or a big bald head? I think it's because that's the way we depicted the Martians 100 years ago.
We have another question. David comments that he joined late and caught your last half of the presentation. Were you able to observe the canals through any of the historical telescope sites?
Yeah, again, my best effort was at Flagstaff, but that was when Mars was having that dust storm. And so there are still people today who say they can see the canals. Now, of course, the canals don't exist. They're optical illusions, but under the right circumstances, people still report seeing them. But I've never seen the canals on Mars. Actually, I'd be curious if any one of you has seen what you thought were lines on Mars.
Doesn't look like it.
Hey.
In the interest of full disclosure, I only read the headline. I didn't have time to read the article before I left, but am I correct in assuming now that Musk has called off his run at Mars?
Say that again?
There was something online this morning, admittedly online, that Musk has decided not to go to Mars now.
I have certainly not heard that. Maybe what you saw was something about how, unfortunately, NASA, the U.S. Congress has defunded plans for the Mars sample return. So all those rock samples that the Perseverance rover has been collecting to be brought back to Earth are now going to sit up there until we figure out some new way to bring them back. Maybe you saw a headline about that. I would be very surprised if Elon Musk backed away from his lifelong or decades-long dream of colonizing Mars.
Certainly an interesting endeavor. Yeah. Okay, anything?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
One more. Could you summarize the questions from the floor before responding? So I guess that question wasn't heard on Zoom.
So the question was that there was a headline read, but the article not read, regarding the Musk's Ventures trip to Mars was canceled. So that and then David responded by saying it was probably the collection of the samples from Mars, not the actual colonization piece that was canceled.
The internet says that Musk now says it would be a distraction.
Really?
To go this year.
Oh, to go this year. Okay. Yeah, he was talking about, the last I heard back in May, he said he was going to try to start, this year. And he was going to try to start sending some of his Starship rockets like in December, but we've already passed that. So the next opportunity won't be till the next, probably till next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for hosting me. And I want to apologize on behalf of my country. Seriously, there are a lot of Americans who do not like the direction of this White House. I suspect it's the majority of Americans. Unfortunately, we have this person in the White House for another 3 years. But please don't give up on us.
Thanks for the comment, David. I know many people are not against Americans, they're just against the current regime.
I'm with you there.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, thank you for your time today and for presenting this. And
Thank you.
having read most of your book, I strongly encourage others to get a copy of it and read it. It really is a good read. So thanks again.
All right, I'll sign off. Thanks. Very nice to meet you all.
Great. Thanks, David.
Okay. Bye-bye.
So it's break? Okay. For those in the room, there are books down there. Like I said earlier, there are 3 books on Mars. There's also a couple of new editions. When I was cleaning off my shelves, I recognized I had a couple of books that had RASC Center in the middle of it. So I somehow borrowed them and never returned them. But now they're returned, so you can go and have a boo at them. So we'll see you in 15. So that would be quarter after. All right, so we'll see you at 2:15. 1:15 in Eastern for those of you that are attending from Ontario.
Okay, so break's over, so we'll get back on track with Paul Heath, Food from the Soul.
this is that sort of the focus of the poem. Red eye watching. We look from the cave, light rising, a brightening, red eye watching. We gathered chariots as red eye brightened, the god of war watching. With polished glass eyes, the brightening light, marking seen, a world revealed, a red eye watching. An expert with exacting care, within the red eye's brightening sketch global, a pattern exacting, civilization beyond ours declared. We remembered, looking from the cave, the bright light, brightening, dimming, brightening, stories grew from unease. An ancient people holding on, a red eye watching us. We wrote their story upon our pages, upon our minds, with hope, with wonder, with unease. A civilization, ancient, wondrous, desperate, the red eye watching. We grew, the light brightening, dimming, grand plans, a copy of stories sketched. We grew through global trials, then sent a messenger, a hope of joining, of rising, of proving worth. Desolation found, no watcher, no joining. But the red eye had served us well. From the cave we'd stepped. Beyond the red eye, we now were watching. So I felt that all the focus on Mars made us look farther and farther out in space. If we hadn't started to look for life on Mars, we may not be looking at extrasolar planets or things. So it's, I think Mars triggered our exploration of the universe the way we see it today.
Okay, so before we have news from the board with Judy.
Tony's starting.
Oh, Tony's going to start with the news from the board. Okay, and then Judy. So just a few comments about upcoming outreach opportunities. We're going to have our annual Urban Star Party at Atlantic Photo Supply on February 23rd. That's a Monday evening with the cloud/rain date the 24th of February. And I think we're planning to get started around 7, so put that on your calendars. I'll remind you again the meeting next month, but just to get it out there. And there's also going to be a stargazing event with the Cobequid Young Naturalists out in Parsboro on the 15th of February, starting at Glooscap Park, starting at 6:30. So if anyone's out Parsboro way, keep an eye on that on their Facebook page. See if it's hopefully the weather cooperates. Okay, so Tony.
Thank you, David. You're good. Oh, good. Okay, so just to share some notes, perhaps the next slide, Jerry. If you prompt me about what I just want to take a moment before I turn things over to Judy. This is my second year as president. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. So just before I turn things over to Judy, I just want to share a couple of thoughts with you. I'm just completing my second year as president of the center, and embarking on my final year in that role. And I've been reflecting on how things are going and that sort of thing. And I thought I'd like to share some of my thoughts on that. Right now, the Halifax Center is steady. We're a very steady group, but we're static a little bit. Our numbers stay the same year over year. No big changes in that. When we look at our various committees and the things that we do, it's, you know, relatively the same folks involved with things, and you know, steady, reliable people looking after those volunteer roles. And when we get to the executive positions, same story again a little bit, that we see the same names and the same folks filling in the same roles. Now, there's some benefits in that, you know, there's a lot of continuity as a result for the center, and there's you know, a lot of experience in that, but there's also some opportunities in there, I think. And I think that you know, we need a little bit of a spark perhaps to try and find ways to get the membership, other folks in the center engaged in some of the center activities. The center is our center, so it's really, we want to make sure that it's meeting your expectations in terms of, you know, why you would join the RASC, and is it meeting those kind of things. And so we're very interested in knowing some things about that. So for this year, we've kind of set a goal as the for 2026, and that goal is to help members feel that RASC is their center to shape and to share. You know, really make it personal a little bit, and hopefully get people to engaged a bit more. And we've got some ideas about how we're going to do that, try to do that, because everybody's busy, and it's, you know, we understand what commitments can mean to people in their day-to-day activities. And so in pursuit of that goal, we're going to try a couple of things. One of them is, I think, Jerry, if you flick to the next slide. One more, yeah. We're going to come up with some small specific roles. So instead of asking for general volunteers on stuff, and we'll post some small one-time opportunities, things that can be done in a couple of hours versus, you know, a long, big commitment. And so we hope to be able to put some of that out there. And so if you feel motivated or able to do something and respond to that, we hope you'll rise to that opportunity. The other thing we would like to try this year is to do some what we call leadership shadowing, but really it is give anyone who's curious about, you know, any aspect of the center and how it works to have an opportunity to dig in a little bit deeper and get some background on that, and do it in a situation where there's no commitment and there's no expectations, just no obligation, just a chance to learn a little bit about the center. You know, things like the board of directors, things like, you know, we have an auditor, we know the communications committee, the Dark Sky Preserve, governance committee, national council. We have a nominating committee, education and public outreach, Nova East, St. Croix Observatory. We have a lot going on, and there's a number of people engaged in that sort of stuff. And so if you're curious about any of it, you know, just reach out. And again, no obligation, no commitment, but just if you want to learn a little bit about that, and then maybe as a result of that, you might find or feel that you might like to contribute more in somehow. Also, we thought we would try to get some member-led projects, individual folks. If you got something that you're interested in, you got an idea for a project or an activity, or, you know, an observing night, a workshop, an outreach event, anything, bring it forward, you know, and we'll work to support you and make it happen. Even if you have something you're interested in, something you've learned about, and you'd like to present it to the center, by all means, give it a shot. And finally, you know, feedback. If there are things you'd like to see us doing, if there are things you enjoy, or things you'd like something we should be at, let us know. You know, we're really keen to try and respond if we can get some of that feedback. So I'll conclude by just, you know, Halifax has a long history. It's got a wonderful foundation. I mean, this center has a very strong history, and a lot of folks, some of them who are here today, have played a significant role in building it what it is. So, you know, we really need to think about, make sure that the center stays viable today and into the future. And so really that's sort of the challenge, I think, for us, you know, get some young people perhaps involved. We have some new faces, but to encourage that and try and stay relevant. So with that, thank you for your time and attention. Oh, Scope Fund. Thank you, Judy. I'll just give you a quick overview of the Scope Fund. We've concluded the fundraising drive where we had the matching components. Tony Shelnick and Michelle Lane, very generous in their contributions there. We've reached about just north of $20,000 in that Scope Fund now. And that's money, it will be invested, and the interest earned on that endowment will be used to help maintain St. Croix into the future. We've also have the astroimaging, sale of astroimaging is afoot now. And so.
That's the next slide.
There you go. So those, again, you're accessible through the website. If you can see the link there with the green arrow, where if you're interested in purchasing a photo. All proceeds of that will again go to the Scope Fund. And so promote it with friends and family, and get folks looking at it, because there are some wonderful images there by some very experienced imagers. So thank you for your time and attention, and I'll just pass things over to Judy.
Thanks, Tony. Right now, there are 6 pictures in the astroimaging sale. Pictures provided by Blair McDonald and Jerry Black, so they're there. In talking to Blair last night about it, he does say that yes, there will be other pictures come up onto the site in the future, but for now we'll wait and see how these sets sell, and then keep changing photos. So there won't be a static presentation on that site for sale. So keep an eye on it. There may be something that says, ooh, I really want a copy of that. As you can see from here, there are 2 sizes, 8 by 12 and the 16 by 24s. So you have 2 different sets of size photos for you to choose from. And again, as Tony noted, the green arrow on our, this is the screen capture of our home page. So you can see the far right-hand column has that arrow in it. So that you click on there and that'll lead you right to the site where the pictures are being sold. And we'll send out an email, recognizing that not all our members are here in the room or in Zoom land. We will certainly put, we'll send out an email to the membership at large. And keep in mind that because this is on PayPal, I believe it is being advertised internationally too, so that we maybe have some international sales as well, if I'm not mistaken. Next picture, yes. Yeah, Nova Notes. It's an incredible piece that we have for our center, thanks to the hard work of Lisa Ann Fanning and John McPhee. It's a really good issue this month, as they all are. But if you want some excitement, there's whole bunches of pictures and an article from Tiffany Fields regarding aurora chasing. But if you want to calm your heart rate down, there's a nice article in there from David Hoskin about tranquility. In other words, Mare Tranquillitatis. So you might want to have a read on that. We have 2 poets this edition, not just Paul Heath, but also Mary Lou Whitehorn is also featured in this month's, or November, December's. The Members Universe, Lisa's Puzzle Corner, all the articles that we've come to know and love are all in there, so please have a read. And as cited here, if you'd like to contribute to the next edition for the January-February edition, February 15, and you'll notice that I have a picture of the Heart Nebula, and I apologize, it's not one of our members' photos. But nonetheless, just keep in mind, remind you that think about Valentine's Day if you want to contribute something to the next Nova Notes. Dark Sky Weekend is coming up, believe it or not, haha. August 7 to 9. It's at Kedemkujik National Park, a National Historic Site. And just so you know, you may want to start thinking about if you're wanting to camp at the site. February 11th is the date when the national park bookings happen, and our weekend there is a very popular one, so you may want to get onto the site early in order to book that particular event. If you'd like to volunteer at it, please contact Peter Hurley. He will, and his contact information is on our Contact Us page. He's the vice president, so that's how you would reach him. Anything else I need to say about that at this point, Peter? Okay, again, please. The next piece is the Novi Star Party, and that's August 14 to 12, and it's the weekend following the new moon, which happens on the 12th. So we'll have some nice dark skies, assuming no hurricanes or anything of that normality that happens to us from time to time. And we are back home again at Smiley's Provincial Park. We don't have a lot of details as yet because the Nova East planning team has not met, and we probably won't be meeting until later this month or early February. So we'll keep you posted as to what's happening there. But if you have any suggestions regarding what you'd like to see at Nova East, please get in touch with me, Judy Black. And again, as secretary, my email address is secretary@halifax.rasc.ca, but it's on our website. Okay, thanks, Joe. Next one. I just want to reiterate what David said a few moments ago. There is the public outreach opportunity at Atlantic Photo Supply in Burnside. 7 o'clock start on Monday, February 23rd with the storm date of the 24th. So if you'd like to volunteer for this, please contact David Hoskin about your availability for that. Otherwise, please come out and join us in the fun out in an Urban Star Party under the lights, and I'm referring to city lights, not just the starlight. But it should be fun, it always is. And APS provides hot chocolate, so if it's a cold night, you have a place to go in and get warm and have a warm beverage. Next, please. One of the exciting things we'd like to announce at this point in time is that we have an opportunity for our members to get training in stellarium. David McHugh from Calgary Centre has offered to do a training session for the 3 Atlantic centres, ours, St. John's, and New Brunswick as well. So on that night, we will have members joining us who are wanting to do the training. It starts at 7 o'clock, our time, 7:30 Newfoundland. The one thing that you must have done, well, there will be some registration information being sent out shortly from myself and or David McHugh. But you also have to download Stellarium onto your computer because it's hands-on training. It isn't just something you watch and take notes. It's hands-on, so be prepared for that. So this is pretty exciting because we know that lots of people want to know about Stellarium but don't know how to use it. There actually are 3 different levels of training. This is the introductory one. If you read your newsletter from the RASC, you'll recognize that level 2 is being conducted 2 days ago. But you needed level 1 to attend level 2. So if we find that there's a need for level 2, we'll certainly see if we can arrange for that as well. Yeah, next, please. Yes. It's January, so I'm putting in the notice here that for the national awards, you have until December 31st to submit nominations for the various RASC national awards. They are all listed on the RASC national website as to what each one of those entails in terms of who would, the type of individual that would fit each of those awards. So have a boo there and keep that in mind. We've got a long time before the end of December, but just wanted to put the heads up there again. Next story, please. And also, there's the observing certificates in astroimaging. I strongly encourage members to get involved in these. It's a really cool way to get reacquainted or acquainted, depending upon your level of expertise, with the sky. Anybody can do any of these, member or not. Okay, as far as the observing certificates go, anybody can complete, download the program and do it. But the only one that a non-member can actually get the certificate and pin for is the Explore the Universe. And that's the introductory level where it goes through star constellations, the moon, the sun, all different aspects of what we see up there in the sky day and night. So it gives you a really good, and the planets. So it gives them an introduction to those sorts of things so that when they go into the other programs, they'll have a better understanding of where things are in the sky. So consider doing that. And we've seen the incredible images month to month that our members are putting out there. I would really like to see some of those imagers actually apply for one of those certificates because I think they probably have the pictures that would they'd be able to submit to it. So guys and gals involved, think about it, okay? And submit your images to the astroimaging. Next, please. So our next board meeting is February 3rd. There are several board members here in the room. They will just have you, I know people in Zoom land won't be able to see you, but Tony, our president, you have seen speak today. David Hoskin, who is also one of our board members and our EPO chair. Dave McMullen is here. Frank Logan is here. Peter Hurley, our vice president, is here. Jerry Broski is here. Vincent Valley is here. I see you back there, Vincent. Matt Damon is here as well. And Greg Dill, our treasurer. I think I've got that covered. Yes. And of course, I'm Judy Black, secretary. So most of our board is here. We're all approachable. We're really nice people, really. So if you ever want to talk to us, please get in touch with us. Let us know what you'd like to see the center done is to sort of paraphrase what Tony said. We need to hear from you what you want. The board, for lack of a better analogy, we're the ivory tower. We don't know what's out there, what you people want, what you're doing. We don't have that direct connection like we used to have. So we need to hear from you. So please get in touch with us, any of us, and let us know what you're doing and what you'd like to see us do. The National Council, its next meeting is February 22nd. For those new members, the National Council is an advisory group to the National Board. Council is not the board. It comprises one or more representatives from each of the 30 centers across the country, and we meet 6 times a year to address the concerns not only brought forward by the board that they want advice on or input on, but also those concerns raised by our centers. So that's where that is. And I am currently the representative for our center on that particular entity. Okay, I also happen to be its chair. Next, please. So as to our next public meetings, we have a really exciting one coming up. Devin Williams, who's a PhD candidate here at SMU, will be presenting on building galaxy outskirts, the role of galaxy mergers in cosmic environment. So that's going to be really exciting to hear what he has to say. Blair McDonald will be with us on March 7, doing some stuff on summertime photography, and I think that's has to do with astroimaging and what's the word I want when they go through it. And anyways, it'll be astroimaging stuff. Reprocessing, that's the word I was trying to think of. April 11, to Tony's point about trying to get members involved and maybe doing some small presentations about what you're interested in, we thought that April 11 might be a great time to invite members to do just that. Have you read a good book? Do you have a piece of equipment you'd like to present and say, this is a really good piece, or it's a piece of you know what? Have you been to a conference that maybe you'd like to share some of the information you've learned from there? Anything that you'd like to present to us would be intriguing. So please keep that in mind. We're not talking a half-hour presentation here. We're talking maybe only 10 minutes. Okay, so it's short, sweet, but it's something that really turns your crank. So we want to hear from you. And just so you know, all our 2026 public meeting dates are on our website on the homepage. So don't, go there if you want to mark your calendars, please, as to when they are, because the dates are there. Okay, next. So that's the questions. Again, our next date is February 7 for our public meeting. So please join us then. Again, please.
The presentation of the raffle for the...
Oh, yes. Yes, I forgot about that. Yes, at the February meeting. Thank you, Jerry. We have a donor that has donated a telescope to us, and we are going to raffle it off at the February meeting. Now, just as a word of note, you have to be in the room. So I apologize to our folks out in Zoom land, because we will not mail, unless you're here locally and you want to pick it up, but we will not mail. And I can't remember what it was. It's just Celestron?
Yeah.
127 millimeter? Plus mount, and it's a reflector. So I mean, we'll be sending out an email with all the details regarding the meeting and regarding the raffle for it. Okay. And yes, Paul.
Who is the Nova East team?
The Nova East team comprises Dave Chapman, Chris Young, myself, Vincent Valley, Frank Logan, Mike Gatto. I'm missing someone. I know I am. Oh, Tony. Yeah. Sorry, Tony. I knew I was missing someone. Yes, I can't forget our registrar. Yeah, that's the crew. So if anybody wants to join that team, we'd love to see you. Okay.
Or have ideas.
Or have ideas, exactly. Yeah, let us know. So in the interim, until we see you again, don't forget to look up skies are open, we hope. Okay, take care.
With what's up in January sky. Jerry's just getting it. Let me knock the lights down a bit. Okay, so to begin, sun this month. Well, after the solstice now in December, January, the days are getting a bit longer, but it's we still got a lot of night, so almost 12 hours of night through this month. Sunset. The start of the month was still quite early, 4:44, but you'll notice by the end of the month we're almost an hour ahead in terms of sunset, and sunrise is a little bit later. It is look at PM and AM. I'm getting them mixed up. All right. Okay, the sun today. This is from today's solar image from spaceweather.com, and I just want to draw attention to this fella here, the sunspot group AR4336. It's an interest. It bears watching. It's almost Earth-facing, and it has a delta class magnetic field, which means that it has the potential to unleash an X-class solar flare, but it's been very quiet. There haven't been any flares of note from this guy yet. So we may get surprised over the next few days. And if we do, we might see some aurora activity.
Isn't there one, the other one, I think 4334 took off?
Yeah, yes, a C-class.
I figure it's going to collide with the one that it shot off the day before.
Right, so we might get a cannibal flare and a little more activity. Yeah, but I think they're only calling for Paul's talking about the this sunspot, which let off some C-class flares, I think, which are on the smaller side. But we might get a G1 level magnetic storm in a couple days, but unfortunately, I think we're still looking at clouds for the next few days. Although Monday night, clear sky for Halifax says Monday night might be okay. We'll see. So the moon this month. So we've had the full moon, first full moon of the year on January 3rd. That was the winter or the chief moon. Quaternids were pretty much a bust due to cloud, at least in Nova Scotia. And it wouldn't have been a super great show because of the full moon at the same time. So even if it hadn't been cloudy, we would have only seen the brightest meteors, which would be about 10 an hour. Moon was also very near Jupiter on the 3rd. On the 4th, the moon was near the Beehive cluster, if anyone was able to see that. Today we're at the last quarter of the winter or the chief moon. On the 14th, the moon will be near Messier 4 and Antares. And then we'll have the new moon, January 18th, the Tom Cod spawning moon. And then a few interesting encounters for the moon towards the end of the month, being near Saturn on the 22nd, near the Pleiades on the 27th, and near M35 on the 29th. So hopefully people got out and had a look on the 3rd at the moon's being near Jupiter. We had it was partly cloudy, but we did have some clear breaks, and I grabbed this shot just on the evening walk with my smartphone camera, and the moon's obviously blown out, but there's Jupiter sitting by it, and it was quite a nice sight to see with the unaided eye. And if you had Celestron 15 by 70 binoculars, that's what you would have seen. If you didn't get to see the moon near Jupiter on the 3rd, you get another chance at the end of the month on the 30th. Jupiter won't be quite as close. It'll be more like over here, but still a nice sight through 7 by 50 binoculars. On the 4th, which I'm sure was cloudy, but the moon was near Messier 44, the Beehive cluster. On the 14th, so what's that, middle of this coming week, if you get up early, you'll see the waning crescent moon close to Messier 4, which is a globular star cluster, and Antares, a nice bright orange red star in Scorpius. And you don't have to get up super early. 6 a.m. will do it. So if it's clear that morning, well worth having a look at this. And on the 22nd, around 6:30, so again, just around supper time, if it's clear, go out and you'll see the moon and Saturn and some of the more notable constellations. On the 27th, this looks like it'll be a pretty nice show, again, if the skies cooperate. So the moon and the Seven Sisters, the Pleiades. And the moon's, it's going to be near first quarter, so it won't be super bright, and that might be a nice photo op. And again, not that late, 7 p.m. End of the month, on the 29th, the moon will, again, early in the evening, the moon will be near Messier 35 down here, which is the shoe buckle open star cluster. And the moon's going to be not so close, so even though the moon's going to be near full, still might be able to make out the open star cluster in the same field of view. The best time of the month to, easiest time also to tick off some of the explore the moon or explore the universe mare and lunar features, craters, etc., around the time of the first quarter, the 26th. So 2 days before, 2 days after, you'll be able to observe features in kind of this area in nice contrast because of the shadows. And the planets in January. So the inner planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, they're all too close to the sun to be visible this month. But Jupiter is well placed for observing and imaging, rising in the east after sunset, very obvious in the evening sky. As I mentioned earlier, it was near the full moon on January 3rd, and it will be near the waxing gibbous moon on the 30th. Saturn is visible. It's getting lower in the sky in the southwest, but it's in Aquarius after sunset, and it will be near Neptune throughout the month. Uranus is still visible in Taurus after sunset, and Neptune is visible in the western part of the Pisces constellation during the evening hours, and will also be near Saturn throughout January. So tonight, if the sky doesn't cloud over, Jupiter is at opposition today, which means that it's at its closest point to the Earth. So, if you have a telescope with a reasonable focal length, and you have a look at Jupiter this evening, you'll see around 9, according to Stellarium, Jupiter will be nicely lined up with the 4 Galilean moons. And this is what you would see through a 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain. And this is the field of view of a common planetary imaging camera, the ASI 224. So a great chance to have a look at Jupiter tonight, and indeed through the whole month. This is an image I took a few years ago when Jupiter was close to opposition again, with this camera setup and an 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain. So fingers crossed it doesn't cloud over, at least before 9 o'clock. Saturn and Neptune. This is your chance. If you've never seen Neptune in binoculars, it'll be easy to find. The 21st around 6:30, find Saturn in your 15 by 70 binoculars, and Neptune will be just not quite at 12 o'clock. Should be pretty obvious, the bluish color of the planet.
David, what constellation will it be in? Is it
Pisces. Yeah. Western part of Pisces. Quaternary meteor shower, it's past. So this is keep this in mind for next year. Explore the universe. So the winter constellations that you have to observe for this program are Auriga, Gemini, Taurus, Orion, and Canis Major and Canis Minor. So looking to the east and the southeast, around 8 o'clock, you can see all these constellations. And notice that Jupiter is nicely placed in Gemini, next to Castor and Pollux. And off to the right will be Orion. So nice, impressive set of constellations in that part of the night sky. Winter stars, Sirius is the brightest star in the sky in the northern hemisphere, followed by Capella and Rigel and Procyon, Betelgeuse, Aldebaran, Pollux, and Castor. So again, you need to identify these stars for Explore the Universe. Winter deep sky objects, Kemble's Cascade. This is a nice binocular object. So use this shot from Stellarium as your guide on where to find it. Interesting feature of Kemble's Cascade, which these stars down here, is at the foot of the cascade there's a nice open star cluster, NGC, can't read that, 1502 maybe? 1502. Yeah. And a bit of a challenge for you. This is a great time to look at the Orion Nebula, and one of the features of the Orion Nebula, which is a good test for your telescope, how sharp the optics are, is to see the 4 stars of the trapezium at the heart of the nebula, and there actually should be 6 stars visible. So if you have fairly high magnification, good seeing, see if you can see stars E and F next to the 4 major stars of the trapezium. Double star for January is Delta Cephei. This is a variable star prototype. It's a Cepheid. Its period is just under 5.4 days. So when you look for this star in Cepheus, located here, if you can split it with a telescope, you're looking for a large white-yellow star and a smaller blue star. So it should be a nice sight in your telescope eyepiece. And that's it for what will be up in the January sky. If there's any questions? Okay, if there are no questions, then see everyone in February. Have a good one.
Please hang up and try again.